Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great guest on it because, when you think about a business and you think about all of the different things that you have to think through, whether it's, getting customers, whether it's marketing, branding, or, employee relations, investor relations, all of these great and phenomenal things. And they are wonderful because they are very essential to your business. But oftentimes we don't really take a step back to really think about, what about the graphics and the design work that went into making that marketing or to making that investor deck? I mean, when you think about how your product shows up to your customers, like what is the image that they're seeing? And so I'm very excited to bring on John Fuller to talk about his business, Phoenix Fire Solutions, and the great work that he does and how they help serve their customers and give their customers that helpful edge to really make an impact with what they're doing. So, welcome to the show, John.
Thank you, Trent.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, before we jump into the details of Phoenix Fire Solutions, tell us a little bit about your background and what you were doing before starting Phoenix Fire Solutions.
So, I have kind of an interesting journey to get there. So, I grew up thinking that I was going to be an artist, and I never really had anyone explain to me that there were things that artists did other than fine art. So, when it became time to do that, I panicked and went to engineering school. Studied electrical engineering and mathematics, and then worked in IT for several years before I was in a position to be able to roll back into to doing what I love and more of the creative side of that, and started this business in 2008.
What's very interesting is that you typically hear a lot of people talk about, you know, and I forget exactly which side it is, left or right, but the side of the brain that artists function on, and then the side of the brain that your engineers, your accountants, and the more methodical what side they operate on, and how they're opposite. I mean, how did you find I guess living in both of those worlds? Since I mean, you had a passion for art, but also going down the engineering route.
Well, structurally, it's been very beneficial for the business from a standpoint of we use design a lot as creative problem solving. So not really just making things pretty, but are we solving the right problems and those kind of pieces of it. So it becomes a very methodical, repeatable process. So we're using those creative pieces, but we partner them with business coaching pieces and these other things, and it becomes this blended thing that produces better results.
Awesome, awesome. So now, as you kind of navigated, from the electrical engineering path to moving back into, like I said, your passion with art and the creative side of it, what really led you or sparked the idea of launching, Phoenix Fire Solutions?
So I launched it as a completely different thing. So at the time, I was working in IT in the nonprofit industry, and as I was rolling out of that, I saw a real need for nonprofits needing help in these various areas, and design was part of that because it was always been my passion. But we were also offering fundraising services, teaching people how to raise money and how to set up their infrastructure and how to fix things around their nonprofit. And what keyed me in that maybe we were going too broad with it was I was at a client site and we're working on these design pieces for them. And they have a server issue while we're there on site. Now, the people there know that my background is in IT, like we've done all this, like this is not a surprise to them, but it never crossed their mind to pop their head in the office and ask if I uh, could help them with what was going on. They called in someone else to do it while I was there on site. And so it was too much for people to wrap their heads around. Like, so they can't think in the realm of this person can work on my email or this person can help me get my logo and my branding and my marketing pieces together. It was just too wide for them. So we cut all those other pieces out and moved more to the design pieces, but kept in the problem solving pieces of that so we can make sure that they're getting out of the designs what they need to.
Okay, awesome. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that that is a great, I guess say a great thing that a lot of entrepreneurs go through is that being able to scale down what you offer to really, hone in on your focus. Like, what are you really focused on? And
Right.
I guess as you guys kind of navigated that journey, what was it like, getting, I mean, people who may have been used to you doing a little bit of other stuff, what was it like getting them used to the fact of like, hey, here's what we focus on now?
It was a decision that threw away about 90% of our clients
Wow.
and our personal networks, because I had been in that industry for a while at that point, and that's what people knew me for, and that's what people would come to me for. But it was like, this is it, this is outside of where we want to go with this, so we're going to have to restructure this and build a new customer base and get the word out in a different ways than we had it in the past. So it really chopped us off on a lot of our initially a lot of our word of mouth things, because it was so different than what people expected us to be doing.
Gotcha, gotcha. I mean, that is a very bold move. I mean, to have the determination and say, "Hey, this is where we want to go," and like I said, 90% of your business. So, what was that journey like? I mean, like I said, of just getting back out there, of like, "Hey, now we gotta let people know, hey, this is our new focus," and rebuilding that customer base. What was that process like?
Well, whether fortunately or unfortunately, we started the business at the beginning of the recession. So there was some time in there to get our feet under us and make these mistakes and everything while the economy was still down and before it came back. So we had the opportunity to do that and to have those conversations and to slowly bring those people in, rather than be at a point that the economy is firing on all cylinders and we got to get out there and get these clients. And so I had a longer lead time than maybe I would have had if I had started in, say, even 2006, or if I had started in 2010. On either side of that, being in that recession bubble while being an established business, obviously that was terrible on everybody, but being a new business, it gave us perspective and time to make mistakes and to try things out and to not necessarily have to force it to grow so fast.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now, as you kind of navigated down that journey, and you decided, hey, this is the area where we wanted to focus. What were some of the things about this new focus that really attracted you, that made you comfortable saying, like, what, this is the route to go?
So we made this last pivot maybe 2 or 3 years ago, into adding these problem solving pieces into the mix. And what we were seeing was, so mostly we work with owner operated businesses. So we need to be in a place that we're dealing with somebody who has decision making power enough to like change the direction of their company. So what we were seeing was people would come to us for projects and things that we could totally do, and they would leave and they would be happy with it, but then it wouldn't solve the problems that they needed to solve, because they were asking for the wrong things. So they would come to us and say things like, we really need a brochure. We would do this beautiful brochure for them and get it turned around and get the wording all point and everything. And then they're like, well, I don't know why this didn't generate us sales or why this didn't get us customers. It's because that wasn't the right vehicle for what you wanted. We built what you asked for instead of what you needed, because we weren't getting to the heart of those real problems. So with that switch, we've got into a place now where we're much more deliberate around what it is that we're really trying to solve. Because if we don't do that, what happens in that scenario where I was saying, about brochures, what happens up to that point before someone asks you for a brochure is they have this problem and they don't know how to solve it. So they find a business that is a rough approximation of theirs. And they look at them and they guess that they're doing better than they are. And then they try to find what's different. What is that thing that they have that we don't have? Well, they have a brochure. That must be the secret sauce. Let me go get me a brochure and we'll do this. But they've made all of these assumptions that take the project way off track before it ever makes it into a designer's hands. So designers can produce those things and make pieces that work, but they're not always solving the correct problem with them because they're brought in too late in the process.
No, I think that that is a phenomenal thing. I mean, so when it comes down to working with your clients, what's kind of the feedback that they usually share, or what are the things that they say about, how that experience was working with your company?
Well, so for a recent example, so we have this furniture company that we've just started working with a few months ago, who we've taken them through these coaching exercises, and it's been a much slower uptick than they would have expected because there's some back and forth and getting everybody on the same page in there. And ultimately, they were very, very resistant to the idea of them because they're like, what, this is too frou-frou for us. We're a furniture company. Like, I don't need mission statements and I don't need future planning and these kind of things. But after we get through them, they're like, oh, this makes so much sense. And we both come out of the projects knowing so much more about the company that now we can start to produce better things for them. We uncover things that they would never think to tell us that are vitally important to share with their customers. But if you just leave it up to them, they don't know to tell you those things. So you kind of have to use these processes to tease it out of them.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, when it comes down to, working with your company and, if a person's interested in like, hey, you know what, I know I have a problem. I need some help. One is figuring out what the real problem is and then coming up with a solution. How do they get in touch with you and your company?
Well, the easiest way to get in touch with us is through the website. That's phoenixfiresolutions.com. I'm going to spell that because no one can spell it. The one thing I'll tell your audience is if you're starting a new business, name it something that people can spell so that you don't have to spell it over the phone 1,000 times. But that's PHOENIXFIRE solutions.com. We have some various social channel stuff out there, but honestly, we live a lot in that word of mouth space. So it is always, it's there, but it's neglected and not as forward facing as it should be. But
Gotcha. Gotcha. I mean, and speaking of the name, I guess, how did you come up with the name, Phoenix Fire Solutions?
well, it's about rebirth and charting a new course and those kind of things. But then the solutions piece was back to like initially what I was saying about we did such a wide birth of things. So it wasn't just like we didn't call it an agency or a studio because we were doing IT work for people and we were doing all these other pieces as well. So solutions seemed to fit that better. But then, then we transitioned away from that, but kept the branding and those other pieces in place.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, currently, how many people, like, how big is your company as far as like employee size?
So the way we're structured is like a balloon. So primarily me for the majority of things. But if we're working with somebody and we need a videographer, a photographer, a coder, or whatever we need there, the business will balloon out. We'll bring those people onto the team. We'll do the project. We have our own people that we vetted and we trust to do those things, and they come under the umbrella of the company, and we work on those. And then once that project is done, the company shrinks back down.
Okay. Wow. I mean, I think that's an amazing business model. I mean, from you being able to, like I said, to be able to pivot, based on the client needs without burdening your business with, enormous overhead, which then probably impacts pricing. So I think that
Right.
is a phenomenal approach.
Well, as long as you're out there meeting people and you're doing your networking and you're identifying those people that are really good in their fields. Like, we may have at any given time 5 or 6 different photographers that we're working with based on, well, this person is really excellent at lifestyle shots, but this person is really excellent at product shots. But it doesn't make sense to have all those people on staff. We can just bring them in and source what we need for that specific client. And it's quicker and easier for everybody that way.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, John, before we wrap up, one of the things that I always like to ask every guest that comes on is, when you think about your journey of where you've been and you think about where your business is now, what's two lessons that you've learned that you would share with other business owners?
So I think the first would be to always have a plan somewhere that you're going, even if that's a pie in the sky dream kind of thing. So one of the things we do with clients sometimes is this exercise we call future casting, where they go out in 5-10 years in the future and they have a ultimate goal that they're looking for, and then we step that back year by year for milestones, so where they need to be, so they know where they need to be heading. And what that does for a business is it doesn't have to be so rigid as this is our marching orders and this is what we're doing next. But what it does is when we bump up to something like COVID, if you have a place that you're going, you can continue to figure out how to get there, versus if you bump up against something like that and you don't really have somewhere that you're going, there's no next step. So you're just like, I don't know what to do next. And we use an analogy of like if you're driving somewhere. So if you're driving to Kansas City and you're just going down the road and you hit a roadblock, you just figure out some other way to get there. You don't park in the road and wait on the construction company to come and fix the road so that you can keep doing what you're doing. You pivot and you make the changes that you need to be able to get where you were going. And what we're seeing a lot of is the businesses that don't have that plan aren't prepared to do that when something gets in the way. The other thing I would say specifically for people in the design fields is be sure that you're solving the right problems. Like it's become such a game changer for my firm. It's just that, we would have people and we would produce things for them and they would be happy with it. And then at the end of the day, it wasn't getting them where they wanted to go. And what it's done is it's changed the types of things we do and the models of that to being much more problem solving focused. And those customers are now, instead of being someone who comes to you for one piece of something, they're long-term customers. Like I have clients that we've had for 8 years now that we've done several projects because it makes sense to them and we can help identify what the next problem is and help them. Okay, so we did that thing for you and now we got that working and what can we work on next? And we help get them there. So that's what I would say for the other is, if make sure that you take the time to solve the right thing.
Also, well, John, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure to hear more about your story, to share the insight. And I think, that journey that you've been on of, going from doing a lot to really focusing and then also just really figuring out how to solve the right problem for your clients, I think is amazing. So continue the success that you're on. And thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Terrell. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like our content, be sure to follow us on social media. And if you want to see more of our exclusive content, you can subscribe and become a member on patreon.com/Business Talk Library. Hey, the Business Talk Library is the place where business makes sense.